Hey everyone, and welcome to Quantum Acacias. It is 4:07 and this is recording 48, 47 and 48. So we're talking about the tree of life, and we're talking about the tree of good and evil. I watched this Decode channel and that's where I got that from. In Chaldean, I think it's the tree of life is 47, and tree of good and evil, I think, is 48. I'm not exactly sure. I'm gonna double check that, and if it's different, then I am going to change it. And I'll talk about that. But anyways, hey, we're gonna do an adventures in the Astrals. So I was trying to talk about this one yesterday, and I started getting really sidetracked. And then I was talking about something, and then this car pulled up that said Reaper, and yeah, I just started getting really sidetracked. So I'm like, let me just redo it again, and then I'm going to try to stick to the topic. Okay. So, adventures in the Astrals. This is going to talk about the Cave of Hidden Treasures, Azazel, and the Yellow Lands. Okay. So this is just going to be talking about like the dreams that I've been having recently and how it is connecting back to a dream that I had October 13th, 2023, which was the Libra lunar eclipse, I'm pretty sure. And that was right around when stuff in the Middle East started popping off. The next dream I'm probably going to talk about relatively soon. I don't know if it'll be the next adventure in the Astrals, but I'm definitely going to put it up relatively soon. Will be about Kali, the Dakinis, and getting reprimanded. So that will be in connection to this one, okay? All right, so Adventures in the Astrals, the Cave of Hidden Treasures, and how it's connected to Azazel, and how it is connected to, look, I can't even make this up. This card just passed, and it's got 743 on it, which is 77, and in Chaldean, Oz is 77. Like, I mean, look, okay. So I'm going to go back to the dream first, and I'm going to talk about my recent ones afterwards, okay? So, Cave of Hidden Treasures. So, actually, on October 12th, the night of October 12th, when everything was popping off in the Middle East, it was going crazy. I remember I was sitting, and I was like, what is going on with all of this stuff? I'm really confused as to what is going on, and I would like some answers on how to help. Now that goes into the Kali dream and getting reprimanded, which I'm going to talk about that at a later time. But so I went to sleep. 12/12 is also 10/12 is also Crowley's birthday. I'm thinking about like December is 12, even though Deck is 10, right? But anyways, 10/12 is also Crowley's birthday. So anyways, so I go to sleep, and as I'm orienting myself, I realize that I am somewhere in the Middle East, and I am in the desert staring at this huge cave, okay? Now, as I'm walking up to this cave, I realize that there is the creepiest looking cave guardian, okay? If I could draw him, I would, but he definitely looked Middle Eastern, and personally, I would say that he looked very similar to when we did like the Shroud of Turin, which Turin is connected to the bull. When they did the Shroud of Turin, they said, like, what does the true face of Jesus look like? It looked a lot like that recreated computer image. So this cave guardian had very thick black, like jet black curly hair. He had a very deep olive tone, not quite brown, but definitely a very deep olive skin tone, very sun-kissed skin tone, very thick black eyebrows. And his face was overall like smaller. So I'm assuming that he was also like, shorter in stature. Now, the interesting thing is that I didn't see his whole body, but he did have wings. So it was kind of like you could see his wings and his face, but he was there. So I don't know if his body was like within like a portion of this cave, and he was just, I don't know. But he had these little cute short wings. So they weren't big expansive wings like a lot of the time when you see angels, but they were more like cherub wings. That's what I would say, like cherub wings. But he was not a kid though. He was not a child. He was definitely a man, okay, but shorter in stature. So anyways, I'm walking up to the cave. He was staring at me, and it kind of felt like very reminiscent of the cave in Aladdin. It felt very reminiscent of that. But instead of the lion, it was this man. So it wasn't like a lion mouth and all that stuff. It was a cave, and it was this man, okay? And honestly, he had like the creepiest kind of grin on his face. Like you weren't sure if he was malevolent, if he was going to eat you. Like I wasn't sure of what the motives were. And he wasn't talking. So I was like, he's a strange energy. He didn't talk. He just had this very kind of on the edge of malicious grin on his face. Okay. And so anyways, I'm walking up and I realize that there are 2 huge stones over this cave. Now, honestly, as I was walking up to it, I don't think there was a stone. It looked like kind of like lava inside of the cave. Not exactly lava, but like there was lava somewhere, and the light from that fire was like reflecting within the cave, so you could see like oranges and reds and things like that. But when I was walking up to it, I don't actually remember there being a stone at first. It seemed like it was open at first. And so that's when I started to understand that this was like a sort of gatekeeper to this cave, okay? Because at first it was like 1 stone, and then it turned into 2 stones. And I understood that you had to put a certain number combination in to unlock the stones to go within, okay? So when you figured out how to go within, that's when you would be able to cross into the cave of hidden treasures, okay? Now, the other interesting thing is that, 813 is Sakini numbers, okay. The other interesting thing is that it was very specific in the dream that it wanted me to know that this was the cave of hidden treasures. And I feel like I had heard of a cave of treasures, but they put a specific emphasis that this is hidden treasures. Okay, hidden. So it has a certain mysterious, a certain not easily accessible, and purposely veiled or closed over with these stones. Okay. And so I was trying to figure out the number combinations because I feel like I've been to this cave before, but I just didn't remember the combination. So it was 3 number spots on each stone, and I'm pretty sure they were brown stones. But also like brownish gray though, like brownish stones, gray stones. They were kind of between brown and gray. And so I remember I was trying to do these different number combinations, and there was a female spirit that came to me. So I couldn't see her, but I could hear her. And she was like, the numbers that you do on the left have to reflect the numbers that you do on the right. And so I already knew that the left side, the combination was like 176. And if you listen to the Gemini reading, I talked about 176, okay? The left side was 176. So I was trying to figure out the right side because I was having a hard time with the right. And she was like, the numbers that you have on the left have to be in the combination on the right, because I was putting in all these other numbers. I'm like, it's could be so many numbers. And so when she told me that, I knew that the number on the right was 761. And so so then the cave opened, and I was still very unsure if I wanted to walk into the cave, because this cave guardian, like, I mean, it was just like the strangest look. Like, I just could not tell, like, if this cave was a trap. And even though it said treasures, I don't know, something about it I was just like, I don't know about this. So I remember waking up from that dream like, okay, the next time I see this cave, am I going to actually go into it or not? But it just seemed like there was like more to this cave than just going to find treasures, okay? Now, fast forward a few months later, I ended up having a dream about this cave guardian again, okay? And in this dream, I understood why his face was like that, okay? So in this dream, I woke up and I was outside of this cave again, and it was a ginormous cave. And the interesting thing is that it was not a cave like within a mountain. The cave was a mountain. So when you stepped outside of it, it wasn't a cave like within a mountain. The cave was actually the whole mountain, and outside of the mountain was open air and trees and stuff like that. So if you were standing at the top of this cave mountain, it would look like you were jumping off of a cliff. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So it wasn't like a cave deep in the mountains somewhere, it was the mountain. Okay, so I'm walking up to the cave again, and I realized that this cave guardian is chained to the cave. And he literally like, I kid you not, he literally was like, if you leave this cave, I'm going to take out your whole family. And so I was like, what? But I've heard so much stuff in the astrals. I mean, just human experience and stuff. I just wasn't really surprised. It didn't really take me off guard. Because when I saw him the first time, his face was very, look a little sinister and all type of stuff. So I just sat next to him in his chain, and I was like, I'm like, are you a genie? Are you a jinn? Like, how are you chained here? Because you can just go free. I'm like, we don't have to be chained to this cave. You can be free. And so I told him that. I was like, you're free. Like, I free you from the cave, and we can both leave. Like, why would you stay somewhere that you don't want to be? Like, go be free. And so I saw the chains break. And then I woke up again, and I was like, okay, good. I guess the cave guardian or whatever was looking very whatever, because he was assuming that if I went into the cave, then he would have some type of control over me or something. And then he would have control over the person that ultimately probably has control over the cave, which would be me. And so I was like, okay, he needs to be freed from the genie stuck in the bottle, but this genie is stuck to a cave. And so anyway, so I freed him, and I was like, run like the wind, bullseye. You're free. Run like the wind, bullseye. And so anyways, fast forward another, few months. I'm not sure exactly in between these times, but this is why it's really important to write down your dreams, because things come back around. And in order to really understand it, you have to be writing it down so you can track how it's going, right? Because especially if you're talking to a whole bunch of different beings and a whole bunch of different people, it's like you're splitting time with a lot of different energies. So, you'll probably be in a lot of different places in the astral. So it's good to write it down so you can keep track of what's going on. So the next time I ended up seeing this being, I actually saw him far away from the cave in a place, it was 422, that actually looked a lot to me like London. Now, the interesting thing is that I had seen this place before in a different dream with this guy who was like an Orthodox Jewish Christian, and he ended up finding out that he was actually a Moor. So I guess a white amour, is that a thing? Because there's a black amour. Is there a white amour? Or something like that. And I'd seen this cobblestone street before. So it was these big, huge, beautiful cobblestones. And the kind of stones that you would see like near water. So huge, round, oval cobblestones. And it was at night, and he was standing under a light. And so he had feet now. So I don't know. I still don't know, because when I saw him chained outside of the cave, he did have feet. He had legs, he had feet, and his legs were actually chained. And so I assumed that when he was only showing me the top half of his body the first time, it was so that I wouldn't see that he was chained. And also what I kind of took that as was that, he was able to project himself out. And sometimes when people project themselves out, if they are chained, you can't see their feet. That's kind of the conclusion that I came to. So he can project a certain part of his body, but where he is chained and locked up, it also makes sure that his feet, his astral feet, are also anchored. So he has to come back to that body. Which I guess in a certain sense is very similar to our like our silver cord that like connects us to our body. So our whole bodies can astral project and move. But we have a cord through our stomach, which makes sense because we have an umbilical cord, chained, I guess, or corded to our stomach, where we have to come back to our body every day. It was like a very similar concept, except that he was chained in the astrals. But anyways, I ended up seeing him in this cobblestone area, which I personally believe was like London somewhere. And so again, he kind of had this like weird look, and I was talking to him, and as I was talking to him, I realized who he was, and I was like, oh, you're free now. And so there was like this street area, like, I don't know, downtown London or wherever it was. And then like right off of where that was, there was like this big, huge, like greenery expanse. And so he was kind of like, I wouldn't say he was chasing me, but he was definitely like backing me towards this like greenery stuff. And he still had the same type of face. So again, I wasn't sure like if he was like gonna try to unalive me in the field, or do you know what I'm saying? I'm like, I don't know if he wants to eat me. I don't know. Like, it looked like he was hungry. Do you know what I'm saying? And so I'm like, what is wrong with this being? Like, he's an odd one. And he didn't really look that human either. I'm like, this being is very strange. But I was just like, I'm not going to play into like the energy, right? Because if you play into the fear, then they can also like get a hold of your fear and utilize it and amplify, blah, blah, blah. So I was just like, why are you looking at me? Like, why are you looking at me like that? Like, do we need to go get you some food? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, do you need a sandwich? Why are you looking like this? Like, fix your face. You grow up in a black household and your face don't look right. If it doesn't look quite correct, they tell you to fix it. Like, fix your face right now. So anyways, he did like a half smirk. I guess he kind of thought that was funny, but then he went back to like the stale, like, face. And so anyways, he was like, I want to see if you can create from the ethers. And I was like, okay. And he was like, yeah, so try to create something out of the ethers. And I was like, sure. And so I'm like what? And he was like, just will that the ethers will light up for you, and it will look like electricity in the air. And so I was like, okay, sure. So he was still like backing me up into this field. While he was saying this, I'm like, maybe if you like stop moving. And he was like, no, you need to do it while you're moving. So I'm like, okay, cool. So anyways, I started playing around with the air, and nothing was happening at first. And then all of a sudden I saw the air, the ether, whatever, light up. And it literally lit up, like he said, it was like ribbons of electric energy. And so I was having fun. So I was making angel wings. I was making butterflies. And I was like having so much fun. It was like more and more ether I was getting access to form it into things. And he was like slightly impressed, but then he went back to like his face. And I was like, I'm not sure what your plan is here. I'm not sure what your plan is here, but I'm way more valuable alive than unalived. And so then I ended up waking up from that dream. Now, how is this connecting into Azazel? Okay, so if you paid attention to the numbers on this cave, it was 176, which is 77. Oz. Azazel. Oz. Azazel. Okay, and how I made this connection is that recently I was listening to someone that was talking about Azazel and the Wizard of Oz, and I was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. And I ended up going to sleep recently, and I had this dream that it was in fact Azazel in the Garden of Eden, trying to give life and wisdom, and not just that, trying to take Adam's partner. Now that's a little tricky, because he definitely was giving like, how would I say, like, I can free you, girl. I can free you, girl. I mean, it seemed like he was giving information to help Adam, but it also seemed like he was giving information to be like, you know, your man don't know as much as me. And so it was like, oh my gosh, it was Azazel in the garden that was tempting Eve. I mean, that's pretty wild. I don't know if I've like heard that as a theory or whatever, but it definitely came up. And so I was like, ooh, this is very interesting. So I started doing this meditation, and I was like, let me see all of the forms of Azazel. Now, the interesting thing, I asked, and this is what I was shown. So I'm going to say that because, you know, people study into different things. They might come to different conclusions and be like, well, blah, 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 and things, and this is different or whatever. But what I will say is I don't know if all of these are specifically his form, but what I will say is that he is in some type of way associated to them. Okay, so what I saw at first was this Azazel being, which to me specifically, he showed up at first as this kind of earlier homo something, not sapien, but something else, which was much smaller in stature and much, you know, more hairier. Is that correct? Had much more hair. Darker skin, smaller in stature, and things like that. And then I also started to see him as like a much more modern human, a little bit taller. And I also noticed too, I'm not sure if this is like characteristic of different homo species, but I also noticed that when I saw him, when he was chained to the cave, there's also like a curvature in his back, like scoliosis kind of. So I don't know if that was a part of the species or just specifically him, but I did notice that. So anyways, when I saw him and I was like, let me see let me see the aspects of him or whatever, I saw him as like a man straight up, and he didn't have the scoliosis, and he looked much more Persian and modern looking. Then I saw him as a green alien, much smaller, a green alien. And then I saw him as Uziel. So I'm not exactly sure if Uriel and Uziel are the same or they're just closely associated, but he also has a connection to Uziel, Uzziel. And then the last thing that I ended up seeing him connected to was the Yellow Lands. Now, when I looked at the Yellow Lands, it says that the Yellow Lands are part of China. Some people call these Yellow Lands, which are actually yellow due to, I believe, limestone deposits. that this area, which is next to also the Yellow River, is considered to be the land of civilization. It's called the motherland in China. So I thought that that was really interesting to talk about. I would love to hear if you've had any similar connections or similar experiences of Azazel. I also know that he is definitely connected into Jinn energy and concepts such as teleportation, this hyperspace concept, and electric blue energy. And he does have the ability to physically, tangibly show up in reality, which is very different from like ghosts and spirits and apparitions. And I mean, maybe I haven't had enough experiences with jinn, because I know that there is lore that says that there are jinn associated to caves that give treasure. And back in February last year, I had a dream on like the 10th or the 11th of going into that cave. I didn't see him in that cave, but I did see this Persian looking being, so maybe it was him in a different form. And he was a jinn-like being. So I do feel like he is definitely associated to the jinn as well. But anyways, I just wanted to mention that. And I know I haven't probably mentioned everything, but yeah, I thought that that would be interesting to talk about, as it seems like it is coming up now. And of course, in the Bible, he is the energy of the deity of atonement. And so when you had a sin, you would infuse that into a goat. Sounds a lot like voodoo. Into a goat. And then you would have that goat run into the desert with the sins as an offering to Azazel. And so Azazel would be the one that is absorbing these sins, which I personally think is a little bit backwards in my humble opinion. Because when you're talking about a sin of something and atoning for it, you would, which is like associating it with a more negative action, you need an opposite reaction to actually, actually help it. So you wouldn't send it off somewhere that you can't find it, or, give it to a deity to consume or whatever. You would take care of it. And so in taking care of innocence, you learn the wisdom in order to atone for this sin. And then with an offering, you would really do the same thing. You would offer to take care of an animal and feed it and nurse it through its health and things like that. Take care of an animal that is sacred to this deity, giving it life and nourishment. So I'm not sure where the blood stuff started coming in, but I personally think it's pretty backwards. But anyways, that's just my opinion. I'm sure people have thought about things differently over the years and everything like that. But anyways, that's what I had to say. Make sure you drop a comment down below if you've had a similar experience. If you want it to be more private and talk more in private, you can definitely email me. Check out the description box below. I've got my Etsy shop up where you can get tarot readings, dream interpretations, new moon and full moon scripting mini workbooks with affirmations and setting intentions. The new moon in Aquarius is coming up. I'm not exactly sure what day, but we will talk about it closer to that time. And I'm sending you lots of hugs, lots of love, and all of the feels. Make sure you come back and see me. Bye.